Take the oil, says Donald Trump. There he is, President of the United States, number 45. This is what he says, take the oil. He said this in the campaign, and people sort of shrieked in horror when he said that, and you think, what the hell is this president talking about? Look at this image, Mike. This is just coming from the Syria just over the last few days. And look, these are U.S. MRAPs fighting vehicles here around a Syrian oil field in northeastern Syria. Okay. Now, this has shocked a lot of people looking at this image. And a lot of people are just horrified, saying, what's Trump doing? This is naked imperialism. And I'm going to ask another question, Mike. What do we see when we look at this image? This is coming on Kurdish 24, Kurdish TV channel. This is being syndicated through the Voice of America, a U.S. government-run outlet. Okay. Now, what is going on? Why are these American flags positioned so prominently as they're driving through oil fields? ISIS isn't around. There's no need to really guard these fields. In fact, the Kurdish SDF were guarding them already. That's on record. So what is this, Mike? Is this not a photo opportunity? This is a photo op, to me, clearly. The question is, why is this photo op happening in northeastern Syria? That's the question. And I think we might have a few answers here. We'll look at what some of the other pundits and experts are saying. Well, Tulsi Gabbard, she's running for president on the Democratic side. She's saying for political reasons, Trump claims he's against so-called endless wars, but he supports and is carrying out 19th and 20th century style naked imperialism. By the way, she used the word imperialism. This is the first time it's been used by a U.S. candidate in decades. I want to note that. And this is a disgrace to our men and women in uniform. That's who she speaks for mostly on the campaign trail, and a great recruiting tool for jihadists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is technically correct there, Mike, on all those things she's saying, but she's not really addressing the core of the issue from a strategic point of view. You know, you can sit there and cry and scream about naked imperialism, which people do, and it doesn't seem to bother the deep state at all. Certainly 2 million people screaming that in London didn't stop Tony Blair from going to war with Iraq. So let's look a little bit deeper, though. What is really behind this push by Trump? And this is an interesting article by the National Interest, which I'll point to. And the headline pretty much says it all. Trump's take the oil strategy in Syria is not what you think. And what this author is trying to say is that behind the rhetoric is the U.S. needs a reason to make sure that its current strategy stays in place. That is to pin down the government in Damascus, to strangle Syria economically. They're under embargo. They're under sanctions. By occupying the oil fields in Syria, the United States is keeping Syria from getting its hands on its own oil supplies, its own gas supplies. Therefore, it has to pay for them, usually sometimes at high prices. Sometimes it's getting credit lines from Iran, but it's still not as easy as being able to pump your own energy and use that for your own fuel supplies, for your own domestic needs, but also to raise money to meet your balance of payments on domestic services. If that can't happen, then people get upset and the economy gets tenuous and people rise up in 5 or 6 years and they want regime change no matter what, okay? That's what they did to Iraq. They strangled it economically. They kept Iraq from being able to use its own energy, its own resources. They're doing this to a smaller degree in Syria. This is what Tulsi Gabbard is not really talking about, which is disappointing. But so Trump has appeased the neocons. The neocons aren't. They were screaming when he said he was withdrawing U.S. troops a couple of weeks ago, and then now he's saying, "I'm taking the oil," which the U.S. doesn't need any oil. They're the #1 energy producer in the world. They certainly don't need the money, even if it's $45 million a week or whatever. That's nothing. Okay, so. What Trump has done is appease the neocons, the Lindsey Grahams of the world. They're not going to come and attack him because he's saved American imperial face, basically, by staging these photo ops, like what we're seeing here. But the real reason he can't come out and say is that we can't allow Syria to get back on its feet economically, because that would reveal really the deeper agenda with regards to U.S. grand strategy, with regards to the Middle East. And this is the agenda that Britain, France, and the other European countries absolutely fall into line with, because the sanctions against Syria are not only by the US, they're doing it in tandem with the European Union. They're joint sanctions. So we're just asking people to read through the headlines a little bit more and find out what the real story is.